Hello, my name is Matt Ray. Be talking about law enforcement retention as part of my project. This is Sergeant Rick Frisbee with Springdale Police Department. He's been my project manager. Sergeant Frisbee, I really appreciate all your help and hard work on this. So I'll go ahead and give you the presentation, and hopefully we can make some adjustments within the police department and see where we go from there.
Look forward to it.
All right. So over the years, law enforcement, we've kind of seen some waves where we've seen an increase in patrolmen, and now we're kind of seeing a decrease in patrolmen. We're also seeing some issues, and this is not just Springdale Police Department, this is nationwide, of officers or people being interested in law enforcement career. A little bit of history with the Springdale Police Department. It began in around 1952. There's really no set a year or date when the police department officially began, as we know in modern times. With Chief Hayden, he came from the Arkansas State Police, and there's just a handful of patrolmen with him. Today we have around 145 sworn officers. Those include patrolmen, detectives, and other divisions and specialties. And we police nearly 80,000 residents inside the city of Springdale. We respond to around 300 calls of service a day, so we are spread pretty thin. The purpose of this project was to try to figure out why guys and girls are leaving law enforcement and what we can do to retain those officers that are already here for the duration of their career, which usually spans around 28 years, to keep these officers here. So problems identified, the growing rate of officers leaving outpaced the city's demands. For instance, we have 17 school resource officers to cover 31 schools in the city of Springdale. So that took away from patrol. We need detectives to investigate crimes that were being reported. So we got to keep those numbers up to respond to those everyday calls. The cost of training a new officer is around $40,000. That includes their salary, spending time at the academy, the equipment, the uniform, cars, and stuff like that. And it takes up to a year to train them from being hired to being a solo beat officer. So it takes not only some money, but it takes some time. And then with not having the right amount of people on the streets, it gives a slower response time for those high call volume that we do see. Some of the research methods I did in this was a qualitative method. I did surveys to current officers that are within the department and former officers that not just with our department but outside in Northwest Arkansas region. I used the Likert scale of 1 to 10 and also some open-ended questions to get some response of why they may be leaving. Quantitative method, it was selected reasonings for that, such as retirement. We'll go into that here in just a second. Here are some of the questions that I asked in the current for current officers. How many years of experience they had, due to are going down to do they serve in a specialty, and then job satisfaction. And my theory was that we've seen a lot of negativity in from the outside world, social media, mainstream media, public perception, and that was why officers were leaving. They call it the assailant. I'm sorry. Reasoning for that is what the FBI calls it. But some people will know it as the Ferguson effect, going back to Michael Brown incident in Ferguson, Missouri. And I also asked, hey, where do they kind of see themselves in 5 years? So again, those are just some of the questions that were asked for that. Former law enforcement, how many years law enforcement experience they had before leaving, and also kind of the same paradigm of questions there. Reason for leaving being one of the most prominent ones. And then I also wanted to kind of know what can departments do to retain officers, and those are asked on both ends. So years of service. Now I did get more responses from current officers than I did with former police officers. Had to use social media to get to them. So out of the 21 responses, kind of see a pretty even match, most being 6 to 15 years time frame there. And again, only a few responses, but you know, from 9 to 19 years before they left the law enforcement field. One note kind of, hey, was specialty. Could morale be boosted if they moved around the department? Kind of get stagnant on patrol or in the specialty field. 90% of current officers were in a specialty field or have been in a specialty field, but only 67% of former officers were in a specialty field before leaving. I was not surprised. Yes, it did boost morale and kind of helps them, so that'd be something we could also look at. But on the former officers, a big chunk of them, over half, said no, it didn't really boost their morale. So it's kind of a coin toss on that right now. Job satisfaction, were they satisfied with their job? Most of the current officers agree that they are satisfied with their job at the time, which is good. Obviously, want to know kind of why they left. Former new career opportunities came along for them, former officers. So part of this was day-to-day operations. This is like routine patrol, routine calls, that kind of stuff. We did that, kind of mess with their job satisfaction. A little bit over half agree that yes, that does affect their job satisfaction, just going to those calls over and over again. Where on the other side of that, though, the former officers, that really wasn't the issue. It was about 67% said no, that wasn't the reason they were dissatisfied with their job. Outside influence, this is where I kind of thought my whole project was going to go, but mainstream media and social media affecting the former officers, they're a little bit higher on the agreeing, so a little bit, almost half agree, but about 15% strongly agree. So a little over half agree that yes, that is a major influence to them in job satisfaction. But with former, now I don't know how long ago, if they were part of, if they were involved in law enforcement when Ferguson happened and all this began, but they all disagreed that that was a major reason for them leaving. So could it be internal stress? Politics, as some departments call it, or some officers will call that internal politics. Yes, former or current officers believe that internal politics or internal issues has had effect on their job satisfaction, where as you see on the former officers, that's all split between their answers of agreeing and disagreeing. So again, it kind of varies for that. Past research with this project has shown that internal issues have been the cause of people leaving careers and departments. So what can we do to retain officers? This is, everybody kind of talks about money, salary. We know what we're getting into when we get in this job. We know that salary's not the, greatest. So I was like, well, everybody could want more money, but what's something else that is attainable for the department? So some of these are the answers given was unbiased interviews on specialties, more officer involvement and utilization of the officers. Again, pay comes up, shift in rate differential pay was something that I thought was kind of repetitive. And consistent leadership and communication. Sometimes we don't receive information as being lower on the totem pole. And go from there. And on the former officers, I found kind of surprising that these were both pretty similar in responses. Again, accountability on supervisors. Some officers feel that, hey, supervisor mess up, nothing happens to them. And for utilization of police officers, they feel like, hey, they have to make so many marks where they can't just go out and do their patrol and do their police work. Again, better paying equipment, that kind of comes along with it. So my proposed solution to the department, to Sergeant Frisbee, is that we do peer evaluations. We are evaluated every year on our job status and how we're doing, but that subordinates can evaluate their supervisors in an anonymous way, where if they don't feel like, hey, something's being done correctly, they can voice their opinion. They have a voice for that. And allows the chief of police and his or her administrators to maybe make some personnel changes or may see kind of the pulse of the department. The feasibility of this is it's easily incorporated into the evaluation period. We already do the eval time frame, so it's just in our evaluation for us to do that instead of supervisors evaluating us. It can be done anonymously, so we don't have any names, but somebody can voice their opinion. And pertinent information can be given those in command to make those decisions. So if we do have something that is pressing with one or two supervisors, maybe they can make adjustments as needed. The cost of this should be absolutely nothing other than time. It takes some time to actually figure out how we want to word the evaluation, but the actual money into it shouldn't be little to none. I approximated 2 to 5 hours for that, unknown how long it would take for people to sit around and actually do the evaluation. The urgency, due to the increased number of officers leaving, it'd be kind of nice if this was a solution to go ahead and implement this into our next evaluation phase. And I broke this down into 3 different phases. The drafting phase, which should take about 1-2 hours. Maybe just sit down, hash out kind of how you want to question the survey or the evaluation. Give and take survey should be 20-30 minutes at the most. And then analyzing, which could be about 1-2 hours, depending on how in-depth chief and the command staff would like to go with that. I appreciate your time, Sergeant Frisbee. I also appreciate these students here and Coach Bunny for helping me out with this. I also like to thank Detective Nash for the photos that I could put up of the department. If you guys have any questions, feel free to answer them.
Matt, with these peer evaluations, did you get a lot of buy-in from the officers you talked to about that being a good idea?
I did a little bit. They felt that it was a good way for them to voice their opinion without feeling like they could get in trouble, retaliation. So that was kind of one of their things of, yeah, that might help. Again, their concern was, well, where's it going to go? And is something going to be done? My concern was we don't want just somebody, hey, we just don't like this one supervisor, we're all going to complain, and go from there. But it's a way they could voice their opinion and any kind of issues they have where they may not feel comfortable going to their next level, chain of command.
Makes sense. Given how closely we work together in the organization, it's a great idea. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.